understand you're human and take the heat off of yourself. Like if you don't get the workout in, it's not something that you should beat yourself up for, because a lot of times when people do that, when they derail their routine, they end up derailing everything. It's like you have one air out of your tire and you just pop all the other three tires. It's just compensate in other ways. If you can find an opportunity to go for a walk, kind of tone it down a little bit. If there's a place that you can go where you can take a class, awesome. I think we need to get over that like stress of, oh, I didn't get it in.
Welcome back to the Meg and Amy Show. Thank you so much for the support for our show. Please do like and subscribe and add comments. We would love to hear from you and what you'd like to see more of on the show.
Hey, Amy, it's so good to be here. So I see you're wearing a Valkyrie shirt. Go Lavender, yeah.
Go Vals. Go
Yeah.
Vals.
I have managed to see 2 games. One with Amy that you will remember a couple weeks back. And then this week I got to go with my oldest was in town. So she and my husband and I went to a game. Of course, we were not in the great Amy Wilson seats. We were in the nosebleed section, I think is the professional way to describe our seats. But it was a fantastic game, and they're just really killing it. So
Yeah, and so the Vals won that game, so that was extra special. And they are currently on the tear to get a playoff spot and hopefully not play the number 1 team in the playoffs. That's what we're really hoping, at least not yet.
Well, no matter what happens at this point, I think they have made their mark in the Bay Area. They've brought a lot of energy. They've reminded all of us that everyone watches women's sports, and they have really energized, I think, the fan base like nothing I've ever seen for such a new team. So really, really exciting.
Yeah, and speaking of energy and joy, that is what this podcast episode is all about. We are just so delighted to have a special guest today, Angie Mercado. Angie is a highly motivated fitness instructor, personal trainer, and wellness coach with more than 30 years of experience specializing in women's health and nutrition. She is passionate about helping her clients discover joy and movement, break free from unhealthy habits, and set realistic goals that support lasting physical and emotional well-being. Angie has been named Silicon Valley's best trainer in Modern Luxury magazine and offers both virtual and group fitness classes. Angie is also a sought-after presenter on fitness, nutrition, and wellness, particularly during the menopause transition.
Yay, menopause.
Outside of her work, she enjoys music, cooking, and spending time with her husband and 2 sons in Redwood City, California. Welcome, Angie.
Well, thank you. So glad to be here with you ladies.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on.
I've heard so much about you over the years from Meg, but not until just recently did I learn that you had a brush with fitness fame in your youth. Can you tell us?
Who knew? That would be my future.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And also,
oh my gosh,
you may need to tell some of our audience who this person is, because we do have some younger listeners, and I hate to break it to you, but I've learned some people don't know all of the references that we know.
Oh my gosh. All right. So when the 80s were here, that's when aerobics got really big, right? We had Jane Fonda, we had Richard Simmons, who's the person we're referring to. So my mom was a huge fan, and she did the classes through TV, like it was nothing fancy, and found out that he was going to be making an appearance at Hillsdale Mall back in, God, I don't even know what year it was. I must have been 8 years old at the time. So mid 80s. And, so we went, and I actually got to meet him and take a picture with him. So I have a picture of me with my Coke bottle glasses standing next to Richard Simmons, and he's just all smiles, just his typical self. It was just a ball of life and great energy, and kind of emulates a lot of what I sort of portray in my classes, or at least try to, of just being like leading with love. He was just a great character and an amazing teacher. But yeah, so that was kind of fun. And now I look back on it and I think, who knew that that would be a path that I would
It was
take?
meant to be. Yeah. So the sweat into the oldies thing, that was like
Yeah.
such a
Yes.
big moment. And he had these like satin shorts and very tan legs and tank tops. And he was always just like super energetic. But what I didn't know until I looked it up for this episode is Richard and I share a birthday. So both
What?
born
Very
July
important.
12th,
Very
which
important.
is, we
Meg.
all know, a very important moment. So, although, of course, he's no longer with us, rest in peace. But what a good start to what is
Right?
the Angie we know today.
Crazy. I know. Like I said, who knew? But there must have been some sort of sign back in the day that I should, I don't know, put him at the high end of my thought process when I was planning my life.
You were age 9 then? Is that what you
I
said?
must have been, yeah, like
Yeah.
8 or 9
So
at
so
that time. Yeah.
you didn't start classes, like start teaching
Teaching?
classes right then, right at age
No,
9?
yeah. Maybe I did the classes with my mom when she was watching the videos, but or it was on TV, whatever. But I actually didn't start teaching until, believe it or not, I was like 17 when I started teaching. I think
That
17,
old,
18.
huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
that old, that young, that old. No, I sort of got inspired by another person. So I was in high school and one of our teachers at the time, she was an English teacher, but she also sort of moonlighted in PE. And she taught an elective in aerobics to a group of us. And there was maybe like 6 students who took it. And I just fell in love with her energy. I fell in love with the idea of aerobics. And so when I graduated, I just continued taking classes with her. She was teaching at 24 Hour Fitness. And then one day she offered to basically apprentice me and said, do you want to learn how to teach? And so I taught alongside of her for a while. And then eventually she kind of coached me into a position where I could set classes for her. And then that was sort of the beginning of the evolution. And then I decided I liked it so much. I went and studied exercise sports science at USF. And then things sort of snowballed from there.
Angie, I met you in 2010, and I know this because I actually looked it up when my very first Zumba class. I had been looking and noticing that on the schedule for quite a bit of time, and I said, all right, I'm going to go check it out. But I'm pretty sure you were doing this before. So tell us, like, you went from aerobics. What was the in between bits before you met me, which is when your career really took
Right.
off, obviously.
So,
That's the
so I,
meat. That's the meat of the conversation.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
oh yeah.
Post Meg. Like
Um,
let's just really contain this pre Meg period.
So I actually started off as I was a cheerleader in high school, right? So that's kind of where my sort of influence, my dance influence kind of came into play. I always had this natural affinity for choreography. I was obsessed with Janet Jackson and Paula Abdul, would watch videos and try to replicate all their moves. And so I really developed a passion early on. And I was always like kind of a creative being. So I'd always be drifting in my own little world and thinking of moves. And it's still kind of what I do today. So not a lot has changed. But going into aerobics, I had this background and I never knew I would take it in the direction of dance per se. But I just loved aerobics because it was musical and I moved to the beat and it sort of reminded me of dancing and cheerleading. And so when I had started teaching step aerobics, which is where I began my group exercise journey, I then graduated to teaching cardio kickboxing. And it was all very syncopated and musical. And then when Zumba became popular, I thought, wow, this might be like right up my alley. And so everything was scripted. So you would learn routines that the Zumba sort of platform developed. And then I started kind of going rogue. And I remember the first time I went rogue it was at the Bay Club. And I was like, I want to try like some sort of hip hop track. And so I think I did Low by Flo Rida was my first track. And I was drenched in sweat, not from working out, but because I was so nervous to do this. And then I got such great feedback that I just was like, all right, I'm in this. Let's do it. So from then on out, I started kind of like leaning more into my own creativity and less to the platform of Zumba. And then that's when I changed the name and, Zumba became for me Groove. And then I developed this amazing community and I'm just so grateful because a lot of those people are still with me and it's my heart.
Yeah, anybody that doesn't know your community, we do chase you around. You have been to several locations, etc. And Yeah, we all just follow you wherever you go. So you've definitely developed a really wonderful community around
And
you.
I'm extremely grateful for that because it's really a part of who I am. And people matter a lot to me. So
So Angie, this special flavor of dance and aerobics and so on, you said you call it groove.
yeah,
Is that right? And
yeah.
has anyone like kind of adopted that as well? Like any mentees or anything like that, or is it proprietary, Angie?
Oh, no, I call it groove, but a lot of instructors who started off, like, I guess, with this under the Zuma umbrella did kind of the same thing. They would go off and teach their own choreography and call it whatever they want. I've heard U Jam, that's trademarked. My class isn't necessarily, it's not trademarked or anything. That's just what I
Yet,
decided to call it.
yet.
Yeah. I guess. See, this is where I have issues. But yeah, I mean, I'm certain other people have done the same thing. I just, gave it the groove name because I'm a huge fan of music, and I tend to lean into more R&B and hip hop and soul. So groove sort of spoke to me as the name of my class.
Our health friend group that Meg and I share, we get most of our musical recommendations from Meg, but actually from you.
Yes.
So yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Don't you feel so cool, Meg, that you're tapped in?
100%.
You
I
made you
always,
made Meg like 1,000% cooler.
yes.
Yeah.
It made
Oh, I
even
love
more.
it.
It made even more than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh. The best is when my boys will hear a song that I'm playing and they kind of sneak around the corner. They're like, "Are you going to use that?" It's one of the songs that's on their playlist, right? So, but I got to be careful because the language sometimes it's like, oh man, you guys.
Our audience are filled with very busy people that want to get more energy, get more fit, be able to do more, be better, etc., and they have no time
Yeah.
for any of it. What are the things that you recommend?
I think for one thing is we need to get out of that mindset of grouping our fitness into 1 hour, right? Breaking it up can save people so much time, and you can have a lot of efficiency if you actually space it out. I mean, we can get a pretty good workout in 20 to 25 minutes if you're focused and you're specific about the type of training that you're looking to do. But I'd say number one is get out of the hour-long mindset because I think that's daunting to a lot of people. They're like, "How am I going to fit in an hour a day?" You know what? If you break it up and you do 20 minutes in the morning and then maybe you go for a walk with your dog in the afternoon, you probably hit your hour. So I think stripping ourselves of the expectation and creating small goals is number one, rather than these lofty goals and that oftentimes are unattainable, especially if you have like a really busy career and a lot of other moving parts like a family, and you've got to shuttle your kids to different sports practices and things like that. It can get really overwhelming. So I think that's number one, is just breaking it up. And two, I would say, is really try to figure out days for certain things, because as women, we need more than just traditional, like, whether it be walking or strength training, cardio. We kind of need a little bit of everything. So if you break up those little tiny chunks into different days, like, okay, on this day I'm going to do this, on this day I'm going to do that, on this day I'm going to do this, and kind of set yourself up for success by like, I don't know, having a schedule with it, like you would like schedule your appointments. I think that's another big one.
And to this idea of creating a schedule that works for you, that sort of breaks things up, but also builds into the plan. One of the challenges that a lot of us that work in big jobs have is travel.
Yeah.
The figuring out how to stick with your plan and your program when your entire schedule is upside down and you're dealing with the fatigue of travel. I'm just curious, like, how do you think about that for when your clients are trying to look for a strategy when they travel? What are some of the things that you do for them, and then also some of the things that you remind them to help them feel in control of the whole situation?
I think number one is understand you're human and take the heat off of yourself. Like if you don't get the workout in, I mean, it's not something that you should beat yourself up for, because a lot of times when people do that, when they derail their routine, they end up derailing everything. It's like you have one air out of your tire and you just pop all the other three tires. So then all of a sudden, like you're on this trip and I can't get my workout in. I guess it doesn't matter that I'm eating this amount of calories or this, or you know what I'm saying? It's just compensate in other ways. So for one, if you can find an opportunity, like I said, to go for a walk, kind of tone it down a little bit. If there's a place that you can go where you can take a class, awesome. If you want to bring a resistance band into your bag and do like a short 15-minute resistance band workout while you're in the hotel, that's great too. But if you don't, if it doesn't happen, I think we need to get over that like stress of, oh, I didn't get it in, you know, because like I said, we're all human. We're working with different time zones a lot of times when we travel. So it's just a matter of like finding the time, but also being very kind to yourself if it doesn't happen every day that you're away. You know, if you fit in two times of working out, you've won. You know, you're out of your routine. So, but having missing 1 or 2 days is not going to kill you. You just need to compensate with, like, you know, I would say the diet to some extent, because you're not going to require the same amount of calories because you're not working out the same way. So that's the way I look at it, checks and balances.
And when you messed up or like kind of fallen off, what is your best tip for getting back? So you give yourself grace. You said, all right, those days were a wash for whatever reason. Like, what is the advice you give people so that that doesn't turn into a complete derailing of your whole plan?
Just look at every day like a new day. Like I know that I tend to sometimes, like if I'm in my obsessive compulsive mode, which is a lot, I look at my week like, oh, how many days did I, you know, do this or that? I think we need to look at it as the day. Okay. So I'm just gonna push aside the last 3 days where I was really inconsistent. Maybe I didn't eat everything that I wanted to eat. Tomorrow's a new day. I got to start over. And I just have to start with the same mindset that I had before this, you know, I don't know, derailment happened, and, you know, begin again. And maybe that means like adding something new to your routine that will kind of propel you into some fun adventure. Like you have to have fun with it. It should not be grueling or labor intensive, because then the commitment just won't be there. It's got to be fun. And maybe a good way to do it is to set up a date with someone else who holds you accountable. The friend mentality is huge. Community is everything when it comes to fitness. And if you know, like, okay, I'm off track, whatever, but I'm gonna call and make sure, you know, Jill is gonna be in class tomorrow so that I'm forced to go. Or you text me, hey, Angie, I'll see you in class tomorrow. You know, then all of a sudden you've created a commitment for yourself that maybe you didn't have in the back of your mind until you said something or said it out loud. I mean, every day is a new day, and we need to stop like beating ourselves up for, even like if you had a bad month, you know, like just get back on the wagon and don't hate yourself for it.
When I had a big job, like Meg, I was traveling like all the time, all over the place, you know, so it wasn't just a, you know, here's a work trip and can I fit in a couple things and keep my nutrition, like, you know, one work trip a month, probably I could handle that. But it was just like 2 or
Constant.
3 work trips a month and so on. And I would find that I could generally do the fitness stuff, but I got so off track with nutrition and eating.
Yeah.
And like a lot of it was, to be honest, like you feel kind of lonely and sorry for yourself. And like, it's kind of, and you also just don't have access to the right kinds of foods. You have access to all the wrong kinds of foods, right? You're in a business class seat and they're pouring wine for you and offering you ice cream sundaes. And you're like, I deserve this. 'Cause, you know, like, so what do you recommend, like in terms of countering that? Like how, you know,
Because it is really accessible when you're in those situations, especially like if you're going somewhere where they're catering to you to some extent, right? They want to have all your favorite things. And so, you know, I mean, maybe when you're traveling, you pack your own goodies, you know, and you say yes to certain things, but then you put the kibosh on other things. And, there's certain things that are deal breakers for when you travel, like, oh my God, I'm going to Paris. I got to have a croissant when I'm there, or, and that's okay. But maybe you find concessions in other ways. And so I'd say, yeah, I mean, you're going to just decide to do your best and make the most of that time when you're there, and just, try to stay on track as much as possible and eliminate some of the extra stuff. Stay with more like meal-based stuff and less of the extra little additive things that really add up on the calories. And it's usually like a lot of the snack foods. I mean, snack foods are okay, but you just got to make sure that it doesn't take over, your entire day. So
What are the travel goodies that your favorite travel food goodies that you bring along?
I love like mixed nuts because they're satisfying. Like I have to have food that's satisfying. It can't be like empty calories. Like if I have a bag of popcorn, that's going to blow through me in like 30 seconds. So I want things that are like really satisfying. Protein, energy bars, like mixed nuts, dried fruit, obviously regular fruit. If you can pack a banana or an apple, that's always a good one too. Cheese. I mean, you're not going to want to keep that in your bag for too long. But at the beginning, when you're getting ready to get on a plane or whatever, that's something good to eat if you're going to have a few hours before you get real food. But things like that. And I mean, even yogurt, I've packed yogurt before on trips, just as long as, like I said, I can get to it earlier than later. But I've even done things like when I went to my fitness conference, this is how crazy I am. I packed a little mini coffee maker, a little mini ice chest so I could bring my goodies with me because I have rituals with food, and my system appreciates it, right? Like everything works properly when I know that I have coffee at a certain time and I have my breakfast at a certain time. So yeah, I get it. It's a struggle. So it's just a matter of like staying on top of it and staying ahead of the curve, like when you like plan ahead of time with that stuff.
When Meg and I went on a trip recently, I think we packed more like supplements and stuff than clothing.
Yeah, and snacks.
Right? You guys are so good. I wish I could say that the same thing. I'm going to totally shoot myself in the foot here, but I have not jumped on the supplement bandwagon yet. I'm not taking one thing. And I'm like, as a fitness person, you think that I would have like this laundry list of items. One thing I do want to get on the board with is just taking, vitamin D and calcium, which I think isn't essential through menopause. But aside from that, a multivitamin would even be good. But what's been your experience with that? Have you guys found that that's helped you? I mean, I heard I heard a lot from your podcast prior to this.
So first off, when I started taking creatine and amino acid tablets, just that helped a lot with muscle recovery and joint pain and so on. So like that was night and day. Like I saw a huge change from that. The other thing that we talked about on the show I talked about quite a bit was this perfect amino stuff, which really gives you a big protein boost with zero calorie footprint.
Okay.
So that's super helpful. This is my little perfect amino cocktail
Nice.
right now. Yeah.
We've definitely moved on from the actual cocktails to the supplement cocktails.
Yeah.
I think the difference, Angie, is, and this might be true for some segment of our listeners, Amy and I have had like different phases of our lives and different levels of commitment to fitness. And so I'm sure in your case, because of your job and your personality, your body is more used to strength training. We were like getting back into it. Your system is aligned to the idea of being at a high functioning level. And we were trying to kickstart ours into that.
That makes sense.
To your point about like how you feel in your sort of system, I think most people can appreciate, and I'm just becoming much more attuned to it, that maybe it has something to do with age as well. But I recognize days when I haven't eaten as well the day before. the next day I can definitely feel my body is sort of resisting, which I think
Yes.
then creates this cycle of, hey, I don't feel that great, so maybe I don't want to go to, to work out because I'm kind of feeling lethargic, etc. So
Yeah.
everything that you do on the upside kind of can build on itself, and everything you do on the downside can also build on itself. So that's why I think your advice about restarting and taking each day as a new day really helps. So back to your thing about accountability, there have been several times where I will get up in the morning, and just for those that are listening, Angie's classes for me are kind of early in the day because there's a little bit of a drive for me to get there. And so, I'll get up and I'll be like, oh, can I do it today? I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm feeling it. And I'll make myself pay for the class so that I know that, all right, now I have to get out of the house by 8:15, and there's no way to get out of it. So I do think the idea of putting yourself in a have to do situation most of the time is the right
Totally.
thing.
Or even like I tell people too when they're struggling with it, pack your workout bag the night before and put it by the door. Because if you're staring at it, you're like, damn. Because it's so easy to talk yourself out of working out, but if you set yourself up to the point where you're going to guilt yourself into going, you'll do it. So I think that's a good trick. And also, we need to honor our bodies. I think, if you set yourself up one day and you're planning to do like a high intensity cardio class or even like a strength training set or a strength training class or whatever you're going to do strength training, but your body just really wants like some recovery and some yoga, you need to listen, because I feel like we as women, especially, we're so in tuned with what's happening in our bodies. And if our body's saying, today needs to be like a day where you meditate a little bit, we lower our shoulders, we take deeper breaths, then figure that out. Find an outlet where you can have options. This way you're still moving and you still made the commitment for the workout, but you're not doing something that maybe today is just doesn't make sense. So I like that. And people always tell me when like, oh, I didn't come to your class yesterday because I did this. I'm all, that's amazing. You did something. Like I would never take that as you didn't come to my class. So it's more like, okay, you opted for something that just felt better for you that day. So, that's awesome.
Meg's been talking about this new class that she's been taking, and I'm not sure if it's a new offering by you or if it's just new to Meg, and it's the rebounder. Can you share a little bit about that?
Okay, so rebounding has been around for years, but it's getting a little more press now, especially with menopause, and actually with I just heard something recently about recovery for cancer patients. It's great on the lymphatic system. It's amazing for metabolism. It's a great way to kind of up level your intensity with your workouts without adding impact. Because I know a lot of people, Amy, I saw that you were a big runner, that you enjoy running. And there's something really euphoric about running, right? It's like you get in a zone and it feels good. And obviously it's great. It feels good on the body, but has a similar effect. The only thing that's different is you're on the rebounder, so there's no impact on the joints. So you walk off that rebounder and you're going to feel like you got a cardio workout like running, but without the aches and pains of being on concrete. So it's just an incredible workout. And Meg's done it a little bit for a while now, and I think she's acclimated. I do it to music, so it's all choreographed like a dance class would be. So every track has its own piece of choreography, which is really fun. But it's a challenge, because people are just getting used to being on the rebounder, and then I switch gears and I'm adding different moves and all this
Has
stuff.
Meg ever fallen off?
Never, nope. I shouldn't even say it, Meg.
I know. I do. Angie says nobody's fallen off, and I'm like, well, challenge accepted.
Knock on wood.
But so far, although I have been terrified, so those that might not remember, I've struggled with vertigo for the last decade, and I've just now started to find my way out of that. So I was, forever resisting going to this because I knew that it wasn't going to work well with the vertigo. And so once I was starting to feel better, I was like, okay, I need to give it a try. And I will say I had a very similar experience to my first times rock climbing, which you won't hear me talk about rock climbing much because it's decades ago. And, you get to this
And
moment.
you won it, so you didn't need to do it again.
That's right. Just it's a little bit like our parkour situation. But there's a moment in rock climbing, and for most people, it probably comes a lot higher up than it did for me. But where you like all of a sudden realize, oh my God, I'm up here really high. I'm feeling very vulnerable, and you get a little bit of anxiety. At least if you're me, you do. I don't know. Other people may not. And I have that feeling still a little bit with the beat bounce rebounder class. So I'm still working through the fear, and very proud of myself at the end of it that I made it through. It is really fun. It absolutely is fun. It is really hard. Staying on the beat is much more difficult. It actually might be the same difficult as dance. It's just you don't feel as weird when you maybe get off the beat and dancing, but as you do when you're watching everybody else so far ahead of you. But yeah, I think it's been a fun challenge to take on, and I'm feeling really proud of myself for my 6 classes I've done.
Oh my God, you've done so well.
When you say it's good for the lymphatic system, what does that mean? Why is it good for people going through menopause?
I think one big reason is because I think we've lost a little bit of the intensity of exercise. Like, and wait, let me finish this for a second. So a lot of us are doing either low impact, like walking, which I think is amazing. And from a stress standpoint, that's huge because you have this nice steady flow where the cortisol is not getting hyper elevated and all of that stuff. And that's necessary. And then we have things like strength training, right? Which there's bits of intensity in that, but you don't necessarily get your heart rate up. And I think with something like rebounding, where you have these peaks and valleys where you're not taxing the cortisol too much to the point where you're putting your body at too much stress at one time, but you're elevating enough to kind of get that metabolism kind of kicked into gear. So I think that for one is great from a metabolic standpoint for menopause. But I think from a lymphatic standpoint, it just helps like the body release toxins, because you're kind of just like adding this, like, how would I describe it? I mean, I when I was in pharmaceutical sales, I actually sold chemotherapy, believe it or not. It's the whole other area of my life. And we talked a lot about the lymphatic system, and it's just basically like your body's garbage disposal, and trying to get things through it. I think a lot of times is a challenge, especially if we're not moving. It's just a great way of releasing toxins, if I can say it that way. That's probably the best way to describe it in layman's terms, like mine.
Another thing that we've been learning is around like bone density health, and how jumping is helpful for that. Is this the kind of jumping that you would recommend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that I forgot to bring up. We definitely need to jump as we age. And I think this messaging that happened years ago around, as you get older, you just sort of slow down your fitness. And I actually think you have to ramp it up. And it's more about like not ramping up necessarily like the pounding, but it's also adding more to your fitness routine, more variety. And one of those things that we need to continue to do is to jump, because it helps our bone strength. And again, it also helps with our metabolism, but bone in particular, we need to jump, whether we're doing some just bounding off the ground, which I do in a lot of my HIIT classes, because I feel like even like my 75+ year old women are doing burpees. So, and if you can do that stuff as long as you can without, putting a lot of strain on the body, then more power to you. You keep doing it. There's ways to modify. You can bring the ground closer to you by bringing things up to you, like a platform or something. If you want to put your hands on a platform, you don't have to jump down so far. But I really 100% believe that jump training is going to be the next thing that we talk about in the fitness business in the next couple of years. So, especially with our focus on women.
And so why is it so important for us to have strong bones? I mean, I read about that, and it says so that you don't break them. Duh.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I feel like there's more to it than that. Is there more to it than that?
I think that's basically the general idea, right? We want strong bones so we don't develop osteopenia and osteoporosis, like where we develop holes in our bones, and then that makes us immobile essentially, right? And it makes us more likely to have these spills And with when you talk to elderly, or you talk about elderly individuals who end up breaking a hip or fracturing a knee, that could be a death sentence to a lot of them. So keeping our trunk as strong as we can as we age is incredibly important. And jump training is a big part of that. I think also adding load to the low body is something that we need to continue to do as we age as well, because you want the strong muscle to support the bones that you are working so hard to keep, right? But yeah, I mean, it really is just a matter of like being able to support your body in a standing position, and then avoiding falls, I think is huge.
The strength in the low body, for those that are not in a fitness role, what does that mean specifically? Like, which muscles are you trying to work, and what are some ways that you work those muscles when you say strength in the low body?
So, your hips, your quads, your hamstrings, your calves. The low body, basically supports us coming in and out of a chair. So squats would be number one. Squats, hinges, where you're having a load on either side of your body or in the front end, and you tip over. You're kind of like dividing your body in half, making sure that you sustain a nice solid frame up in the top half. Lunges are great, where you're walking and you're bending your back knee, and you can do that with a load or without. But I think those are really, really good ways to develop a strong low body. But getting up and down off the ground and getting in and out of bed, I mean, we have to think about a lot of these things. And if you can do that without having to use your whole upper body, then you know that you have a really strong foundation and a strong core, and obviously a strong low body. But that's huge.
And when you
So,
say load, you mean like hand
oh,
weights?
I'm sorry,
No.
resistance.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, I'm talking my terms here. So yeah, either hand weights or barbells, kettlebells are another good one, a good thing to use. Medicine balls are also really good because a lot of them have handles. It makes it a little bit easier to carry. But yeah, any kind of like weighted resistance is great. And that's why, these weighted vests have become so popular with people walking, is because you're automatically creating a load on top of your body, and primarily it's in the low body. So I'm a big believer in those. I think those are really, really good. So it's a great way to add weight without having to carry anything. So
Have you taken yours out of the package yet, Meg?
Oh, I have. I've worn it around the neighborhood a few times, and it's in my car on the regular in case I end up somewhere and need it. But
Nice.
yeah,
love it.
I have this concern. It looks a little bit like a flak jacket. And I think in this today's climate, I'm like, I don't know that that's so great. So then I bought like some patches to put on it, but I thought they would be sticker patches, and now they require sewing, which that like stops me. But yeah, I'm slow rolling the weighted vest situation.
Yeah, you're doing so many other things. As long as you find as long as you find a way to fit it in, it's not necessary. But like for people who are like you guys were talking about earlier, who want to maximize on time and bring in as many fitness components as possible, that's a great way to do it. You got the resistance. You're taking your dog out on a walk. It's like we're multitasking. That's just another way to get it in and really add value. So.
So Angie, in our health journey episode, Meg shared with everyone that she has a grand goal of doing a push-up. Can you tell us, can you give us a progress report? Like, how close is she to meeting this goal?
Well, I don't know if Angie's had to see me try to do
Yes,
a
I
push-up.
haven't seen you do your push-up recently, but you were doing it in the studio when you and I trained together.
Yeah.
So I don't think you were that far off. I mean, there's ways. I'm gonna tell you guys how to do a push-up, like to progress into the full body push-up.
That's
Is
what
you
we
start
need.
off on the wall, right? So hands against a wall. You can just walk your angle out a little bit more, so you're putting more weight in the upper body as you get more comfortable, and then you graduate to something that's elevated, like I talked about, like a platform or like the edge of a staircase, where you're up a little higher and then you drop down. You can be on your knees at that point. And then eventually you can do that same push up without being on your knees. And then you can sort of start to walk your hands off the step, and then you're on the ground. So, or maybe you start off on the ground on your knees, and then you pick the knees up out of that plank and go for it there. So there's ways of getting there. And in upper body strength, it's a challenge, And so it does take baby steps, and people need to be patient with themselves and understand, like learning anything new, you have to be okay being novice at it, and taking baby steps versus trying to jump in and injure yourself trying to get to.
So I have notoriously been poor in the upper body strength. So when I started high school and I started trying to do sports, I realized that like the basic things, I couldn't throw a ball from second base to first base successfully. I couldn't serve a volleyball over the net. I was very, I was very remedial. So I have come a long way from those days, but yeah, it's definitely a journey for me. And I would say my report now, I mean, I've been able to do push-ups on knees, no problem. Straight push-ups or push-ups off of like the weight bench. I still like, I would say I could get like 75% or maybe 80% down, but I can't get like that last 20% without and get back up. So I'm still working on it, but
You're getting there. Yeah.
I'll report back.
It's progress. Okay. I'll be bugging you.
We might need a video so we can.
Yes. I will share a video at some point. Yes.
Love it.
Once I think it's share worthy. Oh, so Angie, I wanted to chat with you a little bit about the other side of your world, and that is being a solopreneur. Amy and I talk a lot about leading while female, about the unique things that are kind of part of the journey of women doing powerful things. But you have actually been building a business now for decades, and progressively that business has become more and more individual versus part of, facilities and stuff. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur, when you realized that you weren't just an instructor, but you were a businesswoman.
I laugh because I think a lot of times, and I heard this term a couple years ago, and like where people were talking about imposter syndrome, right? And I really believe that I've struggled with that because I mean, for all the years that I have, really ramped up my knowledge of fitness, I have a degree in exercise sports science. I've also, I go after any kind of continuing education credit that I can fit into my lifestyle. So I've, nutrition certifications, I've gone to conferences, and, I love learning from other teachers and other professionals. But to this day, I still am like, I'm still not an expert. I can't speak on that because I'm not an expert. And I struggle a little bit with that. But as an entrepreneur, I think I finally got enough, strength to realize that I could go at it alone through COVID. And, everyone learned something through COVID, right? And my big aha was, you know what, I still have my community, and I started doing classes virtually, and people were there and, championing behind my business and my classes. And then of course I still have personal training clients. I do that on the side too. I don't know if I talked about that, but, it gave me a lot of courage to decide when this was all said and done that, I didn't need a gym anymore to lay the path for me, that I could conceivably go out on my own. So I stuck it out a little while with a gym. I helped them to develop some programming and stuff. And then when I had an opportunity to rent space more full time, I jumped on it because I thought, you know what do I have to lose at this point? I've got a solid dance community. Let's see how these other classes go. And it's been great. It's been progressing in the direction that I want to. I'd say I'm not the best at marketing because social media doesn't come organically to me. So I am doing things the old fashioned way. I do a lot of word of mouth. And so I think if I was to learn and adopt something new, I'd actually get help in that area and better my marketing strategies. But aside from that, it's been so good for me to step outside of my comfort zone and just trust what people are saying about, my classes, and trust that I know what I'm talking about, and just keep moving in this direction because I have a lot to share and I'm excited about what I do. Obviously, I'm really passionate, and I want to continue doing things that I love and share it with other people and give them the courage to step out of their box a little bit too and do those things. So
I love that COVID acted as a level cutter for you. I think that's amazing. Right.
I never thought that would happen, but it did. And I needed it, I think we all needed that in some weird way, but
the ability to stick with your classes during COVID was a big thing for me, for sure. And when you started allowing your classes to have some on-demand component as well as in-person component, that was really nice for me for the travel and early days when I was struggling with scheduling and fitting in the classes into my schedule. So all of that has been something I've personally benefited from. So one of the things that you do with your business that I think is really transferable to anybody's business, but it's especially unique in you, is that you have supported and elevated other people's businesses as just something that you do naturally. And I'm just curious, like, did you set out to do that, or did that just just show up for you along the journey, and how you are so actively supporting other independents and encouraging people to try out their classes and their offerings as well?
I think that's always come really naturally to me. I just feel like there's, particularly in fitness, there's enough space for us all on this platform, right? And there's certain things that I can't do that I have friends that can do great. And if I can't, like I said, teach like a Pilates class, but I'm a big believer in factoring that into to your workout routine, I'm going to pick out one of the best Pilates teachers. I'm going to tell my friends, you need to go check out this girl, right? And same with any other instructor or personal trainers. If I feel like they specialize in a certain area that I just don't feel strong in, I'm okay to do that, make those referrals. But I also feel like as a woman, not just in fitness, but I love supporting small business, and I love supporting women who are just doing that thing, who've taken the same risks that I am and on their own, like whether it be they're in aesthetics or, they're building a business in, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, but I do that often where I make recommendations for some of my friends who I really believe in that are doing great things. And so I think it just comes from me being the kind of person that I am, but also just believing in fixing each other's crowns and supporting women. So
did you have
yeah.
people that did this for you when you were coming up as well, Angie? We love to give credit to to people in our past that lifted us up.
Yeah, I would say my first experience in fitness was with Amber Lineweaver, if you're listening. She was the one who got me interested in teaching classes. So I think she was great, like pivotal in me kind of like taking off in this direction. But yeah, I've just, I've had great teachers in the past. I remember when I was in college and I was banging my head against the wall trying to take chemistry, which later in life I finally tackled. But I remember the teacher at the time, and I thought, wow, that was a really weird approach. He's just said, I don't think this is for you. Because I was heading down a path that at the time I think I would have run into a lot of hurdles and it would have been really frustrating. I see you more in a creative path. I see you more in marketing. And even though I didn't go quite into marketing, I used that a lot to get to where I wanted to get to. And I thought that was pretty brave of him to take that leap and just recognize what I had without making me feel awful about not loving chemistry at that stage in my life. So, because I was going for nutrition initially. And I'm glad I took the detour I did, because I've had all these other opportunities because of that. But, inevitably I did tackle that beast because I don't give up.
Well, I'm sure you're in a long line of people who didn't really love chemistry. So, and then on the people you've supported, we also should mention my other dance community is, a very strong neighbor, and that is our Matt Adams's Dance Sweat Smile group has really been somebody that you've helped drive.
Loved.
Yeah, right. You helped drive people to his classes, but also sort of built that cross community that has proven to be so helpful for all of us, not just for staying fit or staying in class, but also just to build a community where people feel safe and accepted and supported. And through some pretty hard times, I mean, especially with COVID and not being able to do the group classes, I think without these communities, at least I personally would have struggled a lot more. So I think the value of that is much bigger than the individual pieces.
No, I agree with you, Meg. In fact, it's funny. I met with this woman one time who's starting a business. This was really recent. And she's basically creating an environment where women can meet up, like, basically like a community that's available to women that'll give them different, whether it be social opportunities or business connections and things like that. Because I think as we get older and we're in this middle age where our kids are getting older, they're not in the house anymore, we have to rediscover who we are without being caretakers, right? And so now it's like, okay, this is where community becomes extremely important, like, because depression comes into play. We deal with mental health issues. We're all of a sudden in a situation where we might be retiring. Like, how do I define who I am? And that's when these workout groups, people are playing pickleball. I just love what I see, like, these communities that are kind of organically happening, whether they got referred by friends or whatever. But I agree with you 100%. Like, we need each other, and it gets you over some of those hurdles and those stressful times where you sort of feel disconnected when you've got your closest friends around you that, again, hold you accountable to certain things as well. So yeah, community is huge.
And I really think, like, at this phase, one of the big things that I've been trying to help people focus on, and myself, is really just looking for the joy, right? There is a real joy in doing fun things together with people, and again, that's a nice way to stack both fitness and community into something that's joyful. So whether that's a running buddy or whether that's a dance group, I think the real value is in coming together and in supporting the overall ability for each of us to thrive. So thank you for making that happen for us, Angie.
Oh my God, I appreciate it. And joy is the biggest priority. It's like we have to have fun, and when your heart is full in a moment like that, you don't even realize you're working out. So you're getting like this shot of, what is it, serotonin. And, not only are you in this position where you're just feeling so good emotionally, but then you're getting the workout on top of it. It's just, you get two things out of one experience. It's amazing.
We're all really jealous in a good way of the joy that Meg has with her classes and community and workout, honestly, Angie.
Amy, you should come.
Yes. So, to that end, first off, we should be clear that men are welcome.
Yes.
In fact, my husband has Angie as a trainer, so there's strong referrals from men as well. So, Angie, if people are trying to join your class, obviously these are people in the Bay Area, in the South Bay, but maybe give information where they can find you.
You can actually find it through my website. So I'm almfitness.com, and that will give you access to a link that will take you to my schedule. And that schedule will bring you to the software where you can actually sign up for classes. And everybody who takes a class from me gets their first class as a complimentary class. And yeah, you can reach out to me through that too, and find me on Instagram. My IG is fit to beat 1974. Is that right? Oh my God, I don't even know my handle.
Don't worry, we'll put it in the show notes link.
Yeah, I'm like, what is it? Oh my gosh, you could tell that's not my first.
Menopause does nothing to remembering words.
But I love when I have new faces in my classes, and that's one blessing is my group is really wonderful with new people, and my goal is to always bring people in, so people never feel like fish out of water in the class. There might be a learning curve with whatever we're doing, but my goal is to keep them there and to keep it inspiring through the music and the energy of the group, and that level of acceptance. It should be something that'll make them want to come back.
Welcome to The Human Role, your go-to podcast where HR and payroll collide with innovation. I'm your host, Tiana Neal, and every month I'm diving deep with industry experts and change makers, bringing you real talk insights, practical tips, and fresh takes you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're a leader, practitioner, or just curious about the latest HR and payroll trends, I've got you covered. Ready to roll with the best? Tune in for fresh perspectives, actionable tips, and the knowledge you need to roll forward with confidence. Subscribe now and let's transform the way you work.
All right, ready for Leadership Corner?
Let's Leadership Corner.
Okay. I travel for work quite a bit, and it is a real strain on my marriage. We have a small child, and my spouse is really overwhelmed at home when I'm gone. I don't want to say no to the work opportunities I am being given, but I also don't want a divorce. What did you do when you had small children?
This is a tough one because there's there's not a lot of easy answers here. But I will reflect that there was a moment when my first child was little, my husband traveled a lot. And I remember being really jealous of him having a 11-hour international flight in coach because he got all of those 11 hours without sleep interruptions. So I truly remember just how hard and what a grind it is to have small children.
My husband, who was a stay-at-home dad, was at a Y watching our son swim and overheard a couple of women talking. And one of the women was talking about how she was so envious of her husband because his mother had died and he got to go back east to clean out her house. And she was so envious.
So yeah, this is real. And I think I really appreciate both the question and the difficulty. And I encourage everyone in this situation to remind yourself that it is hard. You're not imagining it. A few specific things that I would think about is obviously you really have to have some open discussions as a couple to both talk about what you're finding hard and then to acknowledge that you're in a tough spot. One of the things that I did early on, I absolutely missed out on some big opportunities because of just knowing it wasn't going to work. We were just not going to be able to make it happen. So sometimes you do have to let a few things pass. And when those opportunities happen, I encourage you to tell yourself that life is long and this is a short period and that it's not the only opportunities you're ever going to have. But in the situation where you are going to step off and you are going to stretch yourself and put some demands on your spouse, I encourage you to throw as much money at the problem as you can. Find more people to help. Think about how you can make short-term compromises to either your financial plan or your high standards or whatever to take some of the burden off and simplify things. But be really careful, and this is why it needs to be a conversation, because sometimes the things that you think are helpful are not actually helpful to the spouse. So making sure that you're listening to what they're finding the most difficult and figure out if there's a way that together you can either offer to do some of it before you leave or after you get back, or invite them to maybe do less, or see if there's ways that you could get additional help, whether that's somebody to come during the day to give them some space, whether that is, offering for some alone time or some something when you get back, whatever it is. But I would say that if this business opportunity does have the right kind of leverage for you and you're determined to make it happen, then make it happen against the whole set of objectives and make sure you problem solve the end to end, not just you get on a plane and the rest of the cards fall as a result.
So I think, one of the things you said was put money into it. And so I would say that for the most part, this is a good investment in your financial future, your financial freedom future, as we've discussed in the past, right? So this isn't just throwing away money, it's money well spent. And then the other thing that you said was about really making sure that it is supporting your spouse in a way that is actually supportive of them, and not just what you think might be helpful to them. And sometimes that's really hard because sometimes, people get into maybe like a little bit of a martyr complex, or like a little bit of a, like, I have to do everything, and then they just explode. So sometimes that can be really difficult to get to, what is really the support that your spouse needs, that you can help them with. But the most important thing is to show that you care and that you want to make it good.
I think a lot of times in that situation, there often really isn't an answer. And I think that is, to your point, Amy, the just having empathy and saying out loud that it's an unfair ask is really what they're looking for. And so giving space for that to say, hey, I see this as a big opportunity. I think this big opportunity is beneficial for my career, my role, but also for our family in setting the right foundation for the future. And I know this is a big ask, and, acknowledging it, because I think a lot of times the biggest challenge, I think, in sort of getting your feet under you with parenting and big jobs and all of that, is it's a lot of additional work, and without a conversation about it, it's easy to hope that someone else is picking up the slack. And it's that lack of conversation that creates that tension and the extra negativity that can be really, really painful in a relationship. But another reminder, it's been decades since Amy and I have been in this situation. So what the hell do we know? So take it with a grain of salt. We really wish for you to know that it does get easier.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was a real pleasure to have Angie as our special guest. Thanks, Meg, for meeting her and bringing her to the show.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got to share her energy with you. I really will say, I think the thing that Angie helps me with is just remembering to be joyful. So, I think everybody knows we care about our fitness goals. We've been putting a lot of energy into it, but I would have never even been able to get started if I didn't have things that are adding to my energy source. And Angie is definitely a net add. So I wish for all of you, not just a chance to hear her on this podcast, but to find your own community and people that give you energy and support your health and well-being.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Subscribe, like, spread the word, comment, all the things.
Send us your Leadership Corner questions. Let's invent the future together, everyone. I believe in us.
Let's make every day count.